out of here.
Hey,
Get me out of here now.
Stop.
Get me out of here, man. What the you mean? Get me the out of here. Man, get me the out of here, man. Get me out of here, man. 6 minutes, Joe. Okay, 1 minute, Joe, man. I'd like to apologize to the courts for appearing before them today. I'd like to apologize to the victim in this case. I'm not going to use alcohol or drugs as an excuse for anything. However, alcohol was a main factor in this case. But I take full responsibility for my actions because I chose to make the irresponsible decision, consuming too much alcohol than I could handle, causing poor, regretful choices leading to my incarceration. I've read the police reports and feel ashamed, embarrassed, and hurt because that's not the person I am. And I wouldn't be standing here today if I would have just been more responsible. I have 4 younger children that I've let down because of being locked away from them, missing out on watching them grow. Having to deal with that is a heartache alone. The only thing I can do now is work on myself while incarcerated, take advantage of all programs they offer, and become a better man and a better father, and not give up doing so. I have to make this my last time in jail, and I plan to. I'm sincerely remorseful to my victim in this case, letting her down when I was supposed to be a father figure in her life. I beat myself up over this every day, wishing I could take it all back. I just hope she can grow up in life and leave this in the past, and that it doesn't affect her future. Again, I'm sorry to everyone I caused pain to in this case.
Celeste?
Thank you, Your Honor. One thing that the defendant said today in court, and even in his pre-sentence report that stood out to me, is that he was supposed to be a loving and caring father. He should have been someone that the victim could trust and rely on for protection and guidance. And instead, he used his role as a parental figure to manipulate her, exploit her.
All right, guys. Today we're looking at a courtroom case that takes a shocking turn before it even begins. The hearing opens with a defendant who has just received devastating news, reacting in complete disbelief. Moments later, we're taken back to hear his emotional apology, where he accepts responsibility, blames alcohol for his actions, and speaks about the pain of letting his family down. At first glance, it may sound sincere, but as this hearing unfolds, the court will examine whether those words truly match his actions.
And violate her. When this happened, the victim was just 13 years old, 13 years and 8 months to be exact. And as much as the defendant wants to talk about the other children in his life, when the defendant committed this offense, it was done in his home, in her home, with his other children present. Not only that, his 4-year-old Sarah and the 7-year-old Ben actually observed the defendant engaging in the kissing and the touching of the victim's erogenous zones. Later, when the defendant went into the victim's bedroom to engage in the sexual conduct, a 1-year-old was sleeping in the pack and play next to her, and there was a 3-year-old in the room who was awake on her phone, according to the victim. And while there is a jointly recommended sentence here, the state believes it's essential to highlight not only what the defendant did pre-indictment, but also what he did after his arrest in this case. Attempted to guilt and manipulate her by blaming her for her own suicide attempt at the Eastlake jail. He pressured her to express her feelings to law enforcement about him or her desire for him to only receive a short sentence. He spoke of wanting to attend counseling together. He emphasized they were a team and told her he loved her, despite being her abuser, despite doing what he did here. And during several of these recorded calls, you can hear the victim crying, further illustrating just the ongoing emotional harm caused by the defendant and his conduct. This behavior demonstrates his continued disregard for the well-being of the victim, his family, and his ongoing efforts to control her and manipulate her. The defendant today in court said he's remorseful, but in the pre-sentence report, he didn't believe he did anything wrong, and he wants to take this to trial. So I'm not sure what this court can believe. He has a lengthy criminal history, including 4 prior prison numbers and 5 felony cases. And all of this, I think, supports the need for a significant term of incarceration, and respectfully ask this court to impose a jointly agreed sentence of 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Why did you call her after you were in jail?
I was told by the detective I was allowed to. I didn't call her. I called my wife, and she answered the phone.
And what contact did you have with her about retracting her statement or modifying her statement?
It wasn't retracting. We talked about counseling, going to counseling and stuff, because that was something that they was talking about making them do.
The prosecutor quickly shifts the courtroom's focus from the defendant's apology to the victim's experience. Instead of accepting his remorse at face value, the prosecution lays out disturbing details, explaining how the defendant abused a position of trust and continued manipulating the victim even after his arrest. Recorded jail calls, emotional pressure, and conflicting statements paint a far different picture than the one presented moments earlier, raising serious questions about whether his remorse is genuine or simply strategic before sentencing.
That's something she said she didn't want to do.
Well, trying to, whether directly contacting her or contacting her through your wife, was wholly inappropriate. And it was further evidence of you trying to take advantage of her at that young age, like you did when this happened.
She asked the detective if she could have contact with me when this case was all started. And then when I went to my preliminary hearing on February 11th, I asked the detective and he told me the same thing.
Well, you're experienced enough in the system to have the wisdom that you shouldn't have been contacting her. In talking to her, having about anything having to do with this case. So you've in your statement, you say you apologize to her, but then in the pre-sentence report, you talk about how you don't believe you did everything you're accused of doing and wanted to take this to trial. What's that all about?
I don't remember exactly what I said, Your Honor, but what I was saying was I don't have recollection of what happened the night of. So I wasn't admitting to, I don't know what happened.
So did you or didn't you do this stuff?
Yes.
And I got to tell you, it doesn't get much worse than this kind of stuff.
I understand.
And I would note in the record that in 2009 or 2010, you were sentenced to prison on a burglary, released on judicial release, and then returned to prison after a violation of the judicial release. And you were released January.
Now the judge steps in and begins questioning the defendant directly, testing the credibility of everything that has been said. The conversation quickly exposes inconsistencies about his contact with the victim and his earlier claims. As the questioning becomes more direct, the defendant struggles to explain his actions before finally admitting responsibility. In just a few minutes, the courtroom shifts from uncertainty to accountability, with the judge making it clear that excuses and mixed messages will not influence the court's decision.
January 7th of 13, you went back to prison on another case on May 1st of 13 and got out in August. Went to prison on an attempted burglary, trespass in a habitation, breaking and entering, June 23 of 16 through August 5 of 18. A whole bunch of theft offenses between that last prison sentence and where you are today. The pre-sentence report and a victim impact statement. I've considered what you have said, what counsel has said, and I've also considered that they've made a joint recommendation of 96 months in prison. And so on count, and I've considered all the provisions in 29, 29, 11, 29, 29, 12, 13, and 14. In consideration of all that, on count 5, I'm going to sentence you to a term of 60 months. And count 6, I'm going to sentence you to a term of 60 months that will be consecutive to one another, with credit for 143 days. Consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime by you and for appropriate punishment.
All right, get out, man. Come on. What you mean, man? Stay down. Oh, man. Get me the out of here, man. Come on.
And
You took my plea back, man. Get the out of here, man. Get me out of here, man. Get me out of here, man.
What's up, Judge?
Get the out of here.
and
Get me out of here now.
Stop.
and second,
Get me out of here, man. What the you mean? Get me the out of here. Man, get me the out of here, man. Get me out of here, man. The 6 minutes, Joe. Okay, 1 minute, Joe. No, we'll put it in the morning.
Put me on your visiting list.
All right.
For jail and
All
prison.
right, man. Stop touching me, man. I'm not doing shit. I'm not doing shit.
all right, consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime by the defendant and for appropriate punishment, and they are very proportionate to the seriousness of the conduct and the danger he poses to the public. And his history of criminal conduct demonstrates that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime by the defendant. Costs are assessed. The remaining charges are dismissed. Anything else, Ms. Alessi?
Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Watson?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right.
With all arguments now on the record, the judge reviews the defendant's lengthy criminal history and explains why a significant prison sentence is necessary. After considering the facts, victim impact, and repeated offenses, consecutive sentences are imposed to protect the public. The defendant immediately erupts in anger, creating one of the most emotional moments of the hearing. That outburst only reinforces the seriousness of the case and brings the courtroom proceedings to a dramatic conclusion. If you enjoyed this courtroom breakdown, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more real courtroom analysis, and we'll see you in the next video.